Hey, it's DBJ, and I got another worst player type for you. This player type and permeates every corner of the role-playing community, from the miniatures gamer, from the grid gamer, board gamers, card gamers, all the way to the complete narrative storyteller immersionists, um, to the from the players that are all about the rules and the dice and maximizing that effect, all the way to the improvisationalists that barely use any rules at all. This worst gamer type covers all of those. And as usual, we are little bits and pieces of all of that, right? So sorry I'm out of screen here. Sorry about that. Thank you. The idea is that this gamer type, the sore loser, and I think we can come up with something else. I need help coming up with a really catchy phrase. And this worst gamer type isn't really focused on as much, but I think brings just as much negative energy as everybody else. The sore loser, first let's give a description. A sore loser is the person not just that quote unquote loses the game, not the person who loses at poker or loses at a chess match or loses at arm wrestling or loses at golf or loses at Monopoly, but the person who takes failure and decides to drain the game by dwelling on their failures and refusing to not only put as much energy into their failures as their successes, but decides to drain the energy out of the game itself by dwelling on their failures. Okay, let's get a little bit more specific and give some traits that I know you guys have seen from classic sore losers, right? Now we all know that classic idea of playing D&D as a kid and your mom saying, "Hey, what are you doing playing D&D? So did you win?" And everyone's like, "Well, you can't win D&D." But there are people who try to win D&D, whether they try to win through personality, win through spotlight hogging, win through rules lawyering or whatever. But the worst part of that is the sore loser that uses those tactics. So, what happens with sore losers during the game? This is what happens when they drain that energy out, okay? Your sore loser is going to page flip everything they can. They're going to snatch every bonus. They're going to try to retcon every bad roll to get over, to quote-unquote succeed, or to somehow erase, to mitigate, to somehow make evident that their failure is not truly a failure. Now, there are many games that allow players to circumvent the failure thing. Fate, you got fate points, moxie, hero points, all kinds of elements. You have advantage and inspiration and 5e, ways for players to somehow throw the odds in their favor. But sometimes even doing that does not always guarantee a complete success. Fate uses a system, sorry about being out of camera image again. Fate uses something called complication. And I like that because I think it's different than saying weakness or failure. It is a complication. And many game masters like myself, when players, especially when you're on a quote-unquote failure roll, when like every time you pick up the dice, every time you click your dice stream, it's just like, it's, snake eyes, it's double ones, it's like the lowest rolls possible, it's the worst rolls possible, rather, for whatever you're playing, and it just happens over and over again. Does that happen? Sure. But even so, really good game masters will want their players to be involved and immersed in the story, and so failure just means complication, okay? When a player fails their stealth check and is captured, that is a complication. That is not weakness or whatever. But some people will say, well, DBJ, I play games to be superhuman. I play games to escape reality, and in reality, I'm a failure. Well, you know what? Guess what? Most of us are, in some way, shape, or form, based on our own perceptions of our own lives. But what makes heroics? Heroics is the idea of not being the best, which is why you have Batman fans. But it is fighting against the odds, against overwhelming odds to be able to do something. You know, Superman fans versus Batman fans, I mean. So, for example, your Superman fans are like, well, I'm the best at everything because I was born that way. There is nothing I can't do. I'm perfection incarnate. And when things go badly, it's because things had to be contrived and go out of their way to make things difficult for me. Well, sure, you can make a Superman, but when you play that character, are you being a sore loser and crying, crying wolf when, oh no, how come I can't lift a building? I can normally shatter planets with my hands. That doesn't make sense. My super senses would detect somebody sneaking up on me. I don't know how somebody could sneak up on me. That's not right. Hey, I get an additional +2 bonus. Doesn't that make me succeed? Well, how could I have failed? Blah, blah, blah. And so the sore loser just starts to drain that energy. Questions the GM every time something happens against them. Always looking in the rules for that extra bonus and hopefully having the GM forget the fact that there are things that are negative against them. Now, is this, like I said before, is this indicative of a particular type of player, like an optimizer or a min-maxer or an immersionist or a narrative type of player, storyteller player? No. But what happens is the sore loser refuses to accept the loss, to accept the complication as a story-building element and move on from there. You know, this person halts games. This person will refuse to bring as much energy to their complication as they are to their successes and their critical cinematic flair. Okay? So, for example, you have, let's take D&D, and a person is a knight, and they're fighting off the goblinoid hordes, and they're rolling high, and they're like, I slash through one and split him in twain, and then hack through another, placing my sword into his mouth and piercing his friend from behind him, and blah, 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 and I lop off an arm, and I cut through a leg, and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden they start making bad rolls. Well, where's the descriptor element now, sore loser? Do you say, the orc stabs me in my kidneys, and my sword goes flying as I fall to my knees, blood pouring from between my fingers as it spills over my battle's worn armor? Or do you say, the orc slashes me and hacks me from behind as I fall over the barrel and in the wagon, turning to the side, sweat pouring from my brow as I panic and realize that I'm surrounded by enemy? No, they're just like, how much damage do I take? I took 8 points. My hit points are low. Okay, who else's turn is it? You know, trying to sidestep the failure, the non-success of the environment. Does that mean that the player character is any less superhuman? Hell no. Me, I'm a cinematic person. I love visuals. I love description. And we all love that underdog, I think, that comes back from beating the odds. Not the Superman, not the person who's perfect from beginning to end, but the person who fights back after those odds. Even from the movie Man of Steel with Kal-El Superman, he's being fought by, he has to challenge himself fighting 3 or more people who are just as tough as he is, and then overcome those odds. It's not about, hey, I'm perfect from beginning to end. I can't be hurt. I can't be, do I figure everything out? Of course I do. I have no weaknesses. No, it's taking those bad roles, it's taking those mediocre roles, and still drawing a story around it. It's optimizing your character and min-maxing your character, understanding those things where you're weak, and understanding and making it into a story element as to why it is you have failed, and where that what that failure and how that failure and means to your character. So, making a perfect sniper, a perfect combat monster who's terrible at social interaction is getting into that story. You know, it's playing lone wolf and cub. It's playing that idea that yes, I am a perfect swordsman, but I fumble in social encounters. I don't know how to talk to the beautiful princess. I don't know how to talk to the king. I probably offended him. I don't know how to talk to the crime boss. He's probably going to have me killed. Maybe you should do it. Or, yeah, I'll talk to him, but there's something about him I just can't stand, and I just can't hold it back anymore. So I'm just going to tell him that I can't stand how he looks. You know, you little bastard, blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, well, why did you do that? Because that's not... Yes, it put my character in a bad position. And yes, it did those things. But I'm going to make that into my story. So, sore losers are also page turners. You're going to find sore losers will halt the game to look up esoteric rules. They're going to somehow turn the tables on the other player characters. Hey, you didn't help buff my character, so I was unable to do X, Y, and Z. It's your fault. Or they're going to whitewash over these limitations and force the other player characters to remind you, dude, you just got stabbed in the back. Don't you? No, man, you're at minus blankety blank. You're at disadvantage. You can't just shove that. Oh yeah, yeah. I guess I am the sort of. Yeah. You're right. I can't do that. You know, just accept it and accept that complication. Accept the fact and turn that into your character and make that part of your character. The knight who's pulled into the alley and with a knife at their throat. You know, don't go, complaining to the game master like, oh man, like, you know what, there's no way somebody could sneak up on me and there's no way that dagger could hurt my character. What do you mean I can't fight back? I mean, I can't be enslaved. My character's too good for that. And start combating a game master who's trying to create a story for everybody at the table. So sore losers, you're everywhere. And no, as players, we don't focus too much on your bad habits, but you shine them in our games, and you've got to stop. You're bringing us all down. All right. So anyway, this DBJ worst player. I think there's something better than sore loser, but it's been around as a classic, so I guess we'll have to stick with it. But as always, create, don't destroy, sore losers. Okay, let's create some greater elements and use that. Yes, you may have failed in whatever action it was, but please don't dwell on it the whole game. Just roll the dice, roll with it, make it an interesting encounter. Hey, if you failed at something, that's just a greater opportunity for somebody else, because you're guaranteed to take advantage when somebody else fails what they do. It's a game. Yes, it's escape. It's a way to escape the reality of our world, but you can't be perfect at all things. DBJ, and I'm out.